Okay, this is part two of what I was just talking about before here. Um, Calling it hidden messages in modern media. And there's a whole heck of a lot of them. And it's in virtually almost everything that you watch from the main studios in Hollywood these days. And from many other sources as well. Um, and I made the comment that when you bring up something that's a racial subject in a movie or a TV show, it can be like a stick of dynamite. But a lot of times, just because somebody reacts extremely negatively to something and thinks that's justified to be, um, we'll just say violent. Yeah, no, not really. But it's, oh, I see, back up here. Um, there are a lot of reasons why it's okay to not always say things with in the way that everybody would like to have them said. People make mistakes in how they say things that should be forgivable. What's not okay is there's a few things. One of them is when you say something intentionally to upset someone that is whatever racist or that, but or was I'll say racially inflammatory, or can cause someone to be upset. It doesn't have to be racist. It could just be very upsetting in some way. But the crazy thing about all that is a lot of times the only person who really knows how they intended something is the person that says what they're saying. That's the person who knows if were they meant something in a mean way or not. Ultimately, I mean, you can get some really clever individuals sometimes. There's a lot of intricacies about this whole thing. It's just human interactions, right? It's the nature of the beast. But what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of, and I'm talking about just the Purge movies for race a little bit, but there's a lot of things that movies and TV shows will suggest to your subconscious. And what about this? What about that? There's a lot of just the ideas are endless. And in the past, most of those ideas were, we don't always like them, but if you kind of notice them, you can kind of tell, you can really pick apart different movies and stuff. And many great movies have many great ideas about them. Not just one or two, but there's a lot of, they're beefy, it's like anyway, they're beefy movies, a lot of stuff, intellectually, but it's like, well, how can I put this, Stephen King, we'll talk about King here for a bit. Stephen King will use stereotypes. Sure. Has anybody accused Stephen King of being racist? Probably. Is the fact that he's a liberal, does it help him? Some would say yes, in talking with certain kinds of folks. There's a lot of stereotypes and stuff. Almost every single book he's ever written, a movie based on book, has just chock full of stereotypes. Sometimes it's not necessarily about a stereotype, sometimes it's just a culture, a subculture. Like the white southern hick, right? Or the equivalent of that same kind of person who was black. The southerner, the Southerner who's kind of not very, you know, yeah, okay, that kind of stuff. So, you know, he has that kind of character that comes into his movies a lot, his books. When we think about these kinds of things, there's so many things that come into our minds from media. So what's the effect that it has on us? Overall effect? Well, it can actually be pretty negative to our. We're not always aware of how negative it can be, but it can be really negative. And not only it can be negative, it can be deceptive. It can throw us off about people. It can affect how we treat other people, how we perceive other people, when someone says something, it's how we react to it, or how we respond to it. It's a huge thing. It absolutely makes sense to look at what media we're paying attention to. If I just watched political videos in my spare time every day, that's all I did, and I was just consuming politics, do you think I would be an angrier person or a more peaceful person? Probably more of an angry person. And I'm talking about all the talk show things. I'm not just talking about your more highbrow George Will types, columns and stuff. I'm talking about devouring. I can't get enough of it. Oh, what kind of person does that? I've known people that are approximate that kind of person more. No, but it did not help them one bit. No. Stephen Colbert is a clever man, but he's himself. He's a jerk. Stephen Colbert is a jerk. Jon Stewart, maybe I like him more. Maybe he's liberal. Maybe I still think he's a pretty cool guy. I don't know. Colbert has his pluses too, but no, he's still more of a jerk. And just imagine being saturated by that kind of thing all the time. Now, I'm picking on a few. It doesn't matter really. In a way, it doesn't really matter so much who you're listening to. If the tone is angry all day, if it's just anger you're hearing, it's going to make you angry. If you pay attention to more peaceful things, it's going to help you be more peaceful. If you watch a little bit of things that are upsetting, but you balance out with other things that are not, you'll probably be okay. When you live in the inner city, what context do you have for anything that you're seeing that's not in your neighborhood? Especially if you're younger and you grew up there. Unless you know people who are different, demographics or whatever, you don't know what's going on. You just see it on TV, right? In New York City, it's great. I mean, if you live in New York City, imagine that's one of the pluses of living in that city is you're rubbing shoulders with all kinds of people. At least depending on where you live, but it's a good chance that you are, and it's wonderful that way. I think New York City it's one of the best things about New York City. Is that you don't have to watch TV to understand a certain culture. You can go to Little Italy, and you can go to like the Chinatown area. You can go to the Greek area, the Jewish neighborhoods, or the just keep going. What country isn't represented in New York City? I just there's a lot of stuff in New York City. So maybe that's Now that being said, so maybe you're not quite as fooled by media when it comes to things like race. Or many other things, like religion. But here's another thing. There's just something else to consider. Maybe living in New York City is kind of like you're living in a TV world itself. I mean, New York City is the hub of TV and a lot of other media. So, kind of like living in LA or Hollywood to a certain extent, but not very much. Living in New York City would be like, oh, you're on TV every day. People in New York City might often act like people on TV shows quite a bit because not just because they'll watch TV in the evening, but maybe because the cultures or the elements of that go into certain TV shows came from New York City. A lot of, I'm not just talking Seinfeld, right? This is back in the '90s, or I don't know, late '90s. So maybe it's very healthy to break out of a uh, to break out of mental limitations regarding just how you see things, how you see different kinds of people. But it can be very hard to do that if you're really kind of tied down to a neighborhood that you're living in. You can't move, you're just less mobile, you don't go on vacation, you don't have money for go on vacation. No, just to change it up here a little bit, let's just say that you're very down on your luck, either homeless or you're motel, whatever. Someone might call you, let's say, white trash. What does a person like this kind of person, maybe they're on drugs, how is this person going to make sense of something they see? Say they get some money, they go see something on Redbox or something. How is this person going to make sense of some kind of movie on Redbox, like a Purge movie as well? What frame of reference do they already have for certain subjects? Some people might be unstable enough that actually might hurt somebody, but they might hurt themselves, might kill themselves. Maybe they're gonna, whatever it is, you never know. And yes, instantly I might be touching a little bit on TAPS Act, that sort of thing that I mentioned earlier. The idea that some people are psychologically unstable enough that they need to be locked up or something. But there are people that maybe are just going through so much crap in their life that if you show them a movie or an internet video, certain kinds of media can be so upsetting. You don't know what that person might do. They might, hopefully they won't commit suicide, but they might be so angry that they go out and they join a gang that's racially oriented. They might want to, yeah, I mean, like hurt people. You never know what it is. And it doesn't have to be someone that's poor. It could be someone that's wealthy. Just, but it's easier to have a healthier mindset about everybody when you aren't as down on your luck in life. And especially if all you've ever known is this kind of culture that whatever, your family's kind of crazy and angry, and whatever they're telling you, you just believe, and So let's get back to my original train of thought here. It's just very apparent to me that we'll call it the Illuminati, but call it what you want. Call it what you want. Call it taking advantage of people because you can. But when I say taking advantage of people because you can, who's taking advantage of who? Well, the people who are taking advantage of people are people that don't give a rip about them, that have everything that they could possibly ever need or want, and they are just messing with people's heads with movies and TV shows and everything else that they own, the media, which people are consuming and paying for. and they're saying it's the fault of the white man. No. It's not the white man's fault. It's Democrats. No. It's not Democrats. No. It's Asians. They're taking over. No. That's not the Asians. No. It's not the Asians. It's the Indians. They're scamming everybody. Nope. It's not the Indians. Nope. It's let's just say if someone finally says it's the Illuminati. It's the Illuminati's fault. They're messing with everybody. They're messing with all our minds. They're getting us to hate each other. They're getting us to think, these crazy thoughts about each other. It's all messed up. And then everyone says to that person, "Oh, the Illuminati. Oh yeah. Isn't that just the cop out, right? Oh, isn't that just No. We can't take you seriously." Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's just look at the media for a bit, shall we? Regarding taking that kind of comment seriously or not. Can you tell me how many movies that you've seen, or TV shows, or whatever, can you tell me that affects your mindset, your outlook on life, in a way that gets you to, one, be more aggressive and angrier toward other people. Two, get you to think about people in terms of their race, religion, and all these other, things, and you want to put a label on them, and then you want to hurt them, or you love them, or just blindly, just because of the label. Right? Three, How many times have you seen a movie about families breaking apart, divorces, also the LGBTQ thing, how that kind of just, I'm just going to leave it out there that way. So in 4, associated with, divorces and family being glorified in Hollywood. This is, the fourth thing, of course, is how often have you seen movies, TV shows, and everything else like that where right ways of living are mocked and made fun of. And number 5, how often have you seen stuff that seems repetitive? Like it's the same thing, but it's repackaged. Like zombie apocalypse movies, like the Purge movies, like action movies that are just kind of mindless. And yeah. How many video games do you need to have to play that are action type games before you realize it's the same thing? It doesn't matter if I'm fighting, in this certain cases, it doesn't matter if I'm fighting monsters or robots or people in, like army stuff or evil clowns. The guns I'm using, the first person shooter thing I'm doing, it's all the same. So the repetition of this everything is kind of it's a mind trick. It lulls you into this false sense of security. It gets you to think a certain way that isn't necessarily really healthy. And that's just 5 points. I could touch on others as well, How many times have you seen things that are questioning, just make you kind of sick inside? You're not sure why. They're kind of undermining ideas of how life should begin and childhood, how childhood should be, and how many times have you seen that stuff? So, on top of all that, I'm losing track of numbers here a little bit, maybe like 6 or 7 or 8. How many times have you seen movies that are just kind of dumb, but just dumb, and they have dumb jokes, and there's sexual jokes, and they're kind of just in there because it's assumed that they're like, oh, your buddies come over, your friends come over, and you have watch a fun party movie type thing, and it's all in good fun, and the humor gets worse and worse with time. And how many times have you seen stuff where it's like the X-Files, but even more ridiculously obvious that whoever is behind it, whatever group is behind it, is just trying to steer you a certain way about certain subjects. They're trying to say things like, well, so there's some big Armageddon that's going to happen. Some big battle at some point in the future. Isn't it great, though, to know that your government cares about you, that you're going to be just fine in the event of natural disasters? Oh, we're going to have FEMA, Federal Emergency Management, whatever, authorities. And they're going to hand out food and water, and you'll be taken care of. We've all heard the stereotype, and stereotypes always are half-truths. There's always some truth to them, otherwise they wouldn't exist, but they're never entirely 100% correct. But we're very familiar with the idea that the folks in the African American community that seem to believe that the government's going to help them. That if something's wrong, it's the government's fault, and if something's right with the government. Well, that's a stereotype. But it's true that there's a lot of trust in the government. Well, how can I put this? There's a lot of trust in there's a lot of trust in actually, to tell you the truth, I don't think there is as much trust these days in government in the Africa. But some people still have trust in the government. Sure, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's not just black people that trust the government. It's many others as well. But it's people that think, they're being taught that if you behave a certain way, if you do things a certain way, you act a certain way, you can dress a certain way, you have certain kinds of views, the government's going to take care of you, and you're going to be just fine. And hey, the Illuminati, it's not what people say it is. It's actually there to help you. Right? They're going to give you stuff. It sounds like I'm mocking these people. In reality, it's a little different than that. It's more, some people maybe feel like there's nowhere else that they can turn. I want to tell them, just maybe look in the direction of my religion, my church, but maybe they can't see that because they're taught certain things about white people, or how they see different churches that just aren't true. But maybe they're convinced of this, some odd ideas, or just ideas that aren't really always true. Half truths or something like that. So I mean, the fan, by the way, is very nice. It's going to be coming in handy big time in the summer. But I want you guys to realize one thing. I'm building all up to this. I want you guys to realize that a lot of times people do and say things and think certain things. Much of the much of what people do and say and think is because of what they watch, and much of the source of where all that junk comes from may just be from the Illuminati. I want, the guys that just don't give a rip about you. You can actually, if you wanted to, you could just say, hey, it's just the Bilderbergers, or hey, it's just, the Rockefellers, or it's just the Rothschilds, or any one of these families, or it's just the U.S. government, or it's just the British government, or whatever it is, it's the Queen. Whoever you want to peg as the enemy, they're all part of the same club, in my opinion. But if you want to go after any one of them, or you want to just say it's a corporate America problem, that's fine with me. That's totally fine with me. By all means, just realize these people don't give a rip about you. It doesn't matter what race you are. If you are consuming resources and they aren't getting those resources, they don't like it, and they're going to want to take everything you have. And they're going to want to feed you a bunch of junk that you pay for. A lot of crap about people. There's no truth to it. There's enough truth to it that you're going to buy it. And then, they'll have you. I'm just thinking back to earlier days when everyone says media was better. And I believe this still too. But let's just talk for a second about Nick at Night. I Dream of Jeannie and all this stuff. So, there is a certain kind of thing that happens to someone when they start watching a TV show religiously all the time. We talk about this in my church, the Latest Church, as well, a lot of times. When you have your favorite TV show and you watch it every single week, even if it's a great TV show, it's kind of it's something that kind of makes there's a pleasure center in your brain, right? Dopamine or whatever. It just does that thing for you. Even if you don't like it that much, the fact that the TV show is on at a certain time, and it's also, you can think of a movie like Rain Man. There are things about your favorite TV show at a certain time, or certain kind of foods you have at certain times. It does sound kind of autistic or whatever. Yeah, I get that. Whatever. It sounds like, it's a brain thing, it's a dopamine thing. By all means, I'm actually far more sympathetic toward all this train of thought than you might realize. I myself think these ways in some respects as well. But I'm aware of these things and try to take charge of them. But we're creatures of habit, and some of us far more than others. Some of us are very much creatures of habit, and when you have TV shows, for instance, I'm talking about, that are on at certain times, this is how things used to be in TV. And so older generations, that are more used to TV being at certain times, I don't know if they have it's an older train of thought. You have this pattern, right? There's patterns of when you're awake and when you're asleep and when you eat and what you do with your time. And if it's changing a lot, then it's changing a lot. But if it's very much the same every single day, you're gonna know it. Your body's gonna tell you, oh, it's time for Bewitched. Oh, it's time for more Community. Whatever it is. I went through that, when I was a little boy. I know exactly what that feels like, and much of the time it's just fine. If it's a positive show, and there's nothing about it that has a negative effect on you subconsciously, that's another subject we talk about a long time. I've mentioned things like, subconscious effects somewhat of shapes and colors and things. I can get more into it later, I mentioned a lot of the more intriguing things in that regard with imagination and emotions and things. And again, Jim Henson is an awesome guy, and say what you want about what you think is programming, for kids, not just TV programming, but it's interesting to call it programming. Are you programming kids, or are you programming shows for kids? I don't know. You know what I'm saying, right? So there's all kinds of things you can say about this subject, but when you're talking about somebody starting to rely on a TV show like, what? Sweets? Something involving sugar? Candy? Dessert? Something that you want. Let's say somebody has dessert after every meal. breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We'll just say lunch. Let's just say the dessert after lunch and dinner. Let's say that what the dessert is it's one of the following. It's an ice cream. It's a pastry, but like a cake or something like that, especially donut, or it's candy. One of the three. But generally, it's one of the first two, like pies, pastry, it's like ice cream, something like that. Maybe it's pudding, right? We had tapioca pudding when I was younger. I think pudding is great, or Jello, or something like that. But let's say Jello is actually a pretty cool idea in some respects. But it's just you have dessert, and and let's say let's just say most people it was only after dinner. After dinner, you have dessert. The other meals, you just have your meal. Maybe if you have dessert for lunch, if you're a kid, it's candy, but it's not candy. It's like fruit snacks, whatever. And for dinner though, you have ice cream, you have a little bit of cake or something, or pie. Maybe more pie. Pie is healthier. Well, if that happens every single night, you always have some kind of dessert. You expect it, right? No one would compare. We're talking about things that are fairly innocent here, but I think what I'm trying to say is that there's a dimension to this that people, the Illuminati is very aware of, that they can get you to do certain things in it's time for this, time for that, and it's something that ultimately won't help you in your life spiritually. It won't help you be a better person. Even dessert, even pie is fruit, right? And whatever you can say good things about, the grains and other things that are involved. And then I.D. Regini and all these other shows in the past were fine in their own right, but there was a lot of junk out there that, Fred Rogers just came out and said it's junk. He was right. But some of it's fun, some of it's fine to watch. It's just a question of how often. It's a question of, is it something that you become hooked on? And is it hard to get off of it? That's how TV is. That's why my parents limited it when I was younger. So, but this ties back into everything I'm saying. Illuminati's programming people. They're programming us. To one extent or another, they are. The way people are acting. I saw this when I was younger, but it's weird that I would say this again when I'm older. In high school, it seemed like their behaviors that I thought were sometimes mimicked in real life, that they were shown on TV. Oh, it's just something that happened on a TV show I saw the very next day in high school, or junior high, or whatever, or even elementary school.